Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to the show. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Welcome to me. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 37 with my friend Hayli Nicole, where she opens up about her anxiety, her PTSD diagnosis, and the horrifying time she was raped on a solo adventure, and the gradual healing she found through meditative practice after this. And I'm just very proud of Hayli for sharing her story. It's heartbreaking and horrifying, but she's given many millions of people like yourself a moment to pause and reflect on your own experiences with sexual assault and make you maybe feel a little less alone and maybe a little bit of hope for the future and healing and self-care and joy. And so just proud of Hayli for sharing her story and for being here on You, Me, Empathy. Before we get into the episode, just a reminder, a free way to support the show is to leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. It's really quick, takes a couple of minutes, and I love it, and I read every one, and I'll read your review on this very podcast if you'd like. So please go do that. If you want to help out the show financially, you can be a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/youmeempathy. It's a way you can support the show on an ongoing basis, and you get some bonus content and little goodies in return. 25 cents an episode that's $1 a month. That's as little as you can do, and that would mean the world to me if you did that too. So, any hoozles. Oh, I wanted to give you an update because as of this recording, and you probably heard over the last couple episodes, that Jessica and I have purchased a house, and it finally happened. We signed the papers toward the end of this past week, and just yesterday we got the keys to the house, and we're very excited and very overwhelmed. This is our first house. Never thought it would happen. My goodness, never thought it would happen. Like a month ago, we thought we weren't even thinking about buying a house, but it all came really quickly, and just grateful for the people that supported us during the last month in this sort of hectic journey. But we're super excited. It's going to be, financially tight for a couple of years, but we have our own home, and it's funky and tiny, and there's tons of big oak trees, and I can do nude gardening. So look out for those posts. You're welcome. Just kidding. Sorry, that's gross. I'll do nude gardening, but I just won't share those pictures with you. Anyways, I'm just excited. And I'm excited. So not doing much recording over the month of September because we're moving. But good thing is that I have lots of episodes recording, so I will continue to release them on Mondays. So no interruption to you. Thank you for being part of this community. I am so grateful for you. And I am grateful for Hayli for sharing her story. And I know you'll love it. I know you'll connect with it. So without further ado, episode 37 of You, Me, Empathy with my friend Hayli Nicole on rape, PTSD, and meditative healing. Enjoy.
La 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 la, you, me, empathy, yeah.
to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am grateful to navigate the empathy seas on a myriad of topics: anxiety, PTSD, sexual assault, with the mighty, the brave, the open-hearted storyteller, now living in Ireland, Hayli Nicole. Hello, Hayli.
Hello, Nan.
How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm so happy to be here and so honored to be a part of this dialogue.
I'm very happy to have you, and I'm just going to correct you at the top. My name is pronounced Known. It's like
Known.
K-N-O-W-N.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Man.
Don't be sorry at all. It's a weird one. People always say non because it is N-O-N, and that word spells non. But like, there's this silly little macron, it's called. There's a line over the O that makes that long O sound.
Okay, see, and that doesn't show up, I guess, on social media.
Exactly.
Often, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't blame you. Don't worry at all. It's a silly name, anyways.
No, it's not. It's a wonderful name. I actually
Thanks.
appreciate that. That makes a lot more sense because non just sound, not to like discredit that, but it just seems kind of out of place. But known makes so much more sense.
You heard it here first, folks. Hayli is throwing shade at all the nons out there.
If there's a non out there, I would love to meet them. I don't know. It just that doesn't seem like that's like Apple, names are good Apple.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you here. We are going to explore a bunch of different things in your story, but before we get into that, we always start the show with a check-in, just like an emotional check-in to see how the week was, how your day's going. So how are you, Hayli?
It's a funny thing that this is happening at the time that it is, because I'm probably entering one of my darker pages, like stages that I've been in as of recently. And I don't know, I've reached out the wonderful community that you've had built over the last few months. There's mental health issues that are flaring up in my life and coming across as anger, insecurities, sadness. I've dealt with depression in a myriad of ways before, but there's something very different about this one. So I'm going to be starting therapy soon, which I'm actually very excited about. Therapy means a lot to me as a person and as somebody who's on this journey of healing. And yeah, we're just kind of waiting for that to happen. So I think there's this anxiety this week and this kind of heaviness of like, I just want to be there already. And I need to remind myself to be patient, that these things take time. And if I rush it, I might not find the right person and I might not be put in the right place. And yeah, some of these things you just have to trust the process. So I'm trying to be more mindful of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're having a rough time of late. I know, but I think it's important what you said about the patience with these things. That's such a huge part, I think, for all of us, is the patience that we have to deal with or sort of learn to have when it comes to our own mental health, because it is such a complex thing. It takes time. It's a process. There's all these things involved when it comes to seeking help and therapy and medication and stuff. And in that patience, we have to remind ourselves to be kind to ourselves and understand that the struggle is okay.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest one too, is being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be hard to yourself when you're going through these darker periods, and it almost becomes cyclical. One negative thought leads to more negative thoughts, and it is so important to be kind to yourself during these moments. And that was a very good reminder. I really appreciate that.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, totally. So when does this therapy start?
We're waiting to get the referral. Ireland is a little complicated. In the US, I've been through therapy sessions and there's so many different avenues now. And with Ireland, there's general practitioner that you have to be referred to in order to get to therapy. So I just got past that part with the paperwork. So now it's just a waiting game. I think it's like a 3-week kind of turnaround period. So it probably won't be until summer that I'm actually seen. So a little rough, but it's an important process to go through, and I'm glad that I'm learning it, and hopefully I can help somebody else in Ireland kind of go through the same ordeal in their own way. And
that sounds like a long time to wait. Are you a Irish citizen?
I am not. We are both American citizens, and so we have to do things a little different. Yeah.
Got it. So do you think that's the reason why it's a little bit sort of more laborious?
Absolutely, because everything has to go through my husband's insurance first before we can move forward with anything, unless it's emergency care, and this isn't an emergency psychiatric or anything like that. So we have to go through all the appropriate channels before we can actually get to where we need to be to schedule the appointment. So a little daunting.
And I know we chatted a little bit over Facebook, but I'm hoping you have a little bit of support systems during the sort of waiting period.
So I reached out to, and I know we're going to dive into this just so everybody knows, I'm a sexual assault survivor, and I have PTSD and very severe anxiety. And they were doing really well for a while, especially going to therapy in the US. I was given a lot of tools that helped me not nail it, but like I was managing very, very well. And I think just we had our second wedding, a couple honeymoons. I broke my face, had some really like kind of traumatic, high anxiety things happen. And I believe that maybe what's like kind of triggering all of it. So I reached out to a women's health group in Ireland, especially with the sexual assault background. And they said, we'd love to see you in constant therapy, but there are a couple support groups that I am going to be visiting in the next couple of weeks, which I'm actually very looking forward to.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
of course.
that.
I find support groups and just like groups of people like who have experienced the same thing, like it's that's such a powerful experience. I find so that I think that'll be very helpful for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's we're not alone in our journeys, and even if it's if you feel isolation, like you can always find somebody. So I'm really excited to make those connections.
Good. Well, before we get into your story, I just wanted to mention that, so yesterday, as of this recording, I drove up to Pasadena for Pasadena Mental Health Day and was able to, it was at the Central Library in Pasadena, which is just such a beautiful building. It kind of reminds me of, it's like old wood, and all the aisles are very narrow between the books, and It reminds me a little bit of the opening sequence of Ghostbusters.
Oh, no way. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, and it's just such an old, beautiful building. And so I was there for Pasadena Mental Health Day to volunteer for the event with my friend Jane, who is one of the librarians there. But it was just such a really warm and beautiful event. There was about 100 people there. There was a few different panels and workshops, but one panel in particular was fiction. They had 4 young adult authors who spoke about their recent books, who the books had characters that had mental illness, bipolar disorder, anxiety, PTSD. And they spoke about writing and mental illness, and I found it very helpful and just a supportive and warm environment. And I really appreciate it. So I purchased all their books, of course, as the book nerd I am.
Amazing. If you could send some of those titles, I would love to check them out and support as well.
Yes, definitely. I will. I definitely will.
Okay.
I will before the. I'll just say this. I will before the episode is over, because they're going to be my empathy heroes. That's just a teaser.
Yay.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had a good time up there. I drove up with my friend Christina, and yeah, it was just nice. It was just nice to see a community of people kind of come together around mental health awareness, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm really glad that there's a dialogue around young adults facing mental health, because I feel like that's such at least a taboo topic for me growing up. So it's really wonderful that these children and young adults are going to be able to identify with characters. Even though it's a fictional character, it's still somebody that you can kind of identify with, who's going through something similar.
Yeah,
So
I think that's so
really powerful.
important. Especially for, as you said, I think you're spot on. I think for young adults especially, at that age, you don't know who to reach out to. You are feeling you're probably feeling shame and guilt, and you're feeling insecure, and you're still establishing your identity. So there's that sort of pull, and that aspect probably makes it really difficult. It's only, I mean, it took me a long time, like into my early 30s, until I really sort of was able to fully come to terms with things and sort of process them in a way that I needed to, so.
And do you think if you had some sort of literature, do you think that would have helped you in your journey and like be more, I guess, face it earlier than you did?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I depression, anxiety, these things weren't talked about, growing up, or at least I wasn't aware of them. They weren't made known to me. We didn't have, I think I talked about this on a previous episode, but I didn't have the emotional education that I think kids should have. Like, I think it should be sort of part of the curriculum.
Oh, I fully agree. I feel like there's so many emotions at that age that are so conflicting, and we're taught better to bury them than to name them and to address them and to empathize with others who are experiencing the same exact thing we are.
Totally, yeah. So yeah, it is good to see authors sort of addressing these things for young adults, and yeah. So I will mention them at the end of this episode, but. Let's get into your story, Hayli. Let's kind of the segue I'm going to make right now is, and I'm not one to preface segues, but I'm doing that right now. We were talking about having that emotional education as young adults, as children. What was it like for you growing up as a young adult, as a child? Did you have an environment that was rich with these conversations? What was it like for you?
No, it was completely void.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents did an amazing job raising us. My father is law enforcement, and specifically SWAT and bomb arson.
Wow.
So it was a very intense household at all times of every day. For 25 years of my life, all I knew was intensity. We used to have a joke too. Oh, it was just, he was always on call. So if we were, not that we never did. There was no room for us to act out. There was no room for us to be broken or be damaged because he was so stressed with his job. And he also, we come from a very long line of stoics in our family. I don't remember seeing my dad cry until I think I was 12 or 13. Not once. I can count on one hand how many times he showed emotion. Yeah, so it was just kind of like a pull up your bootstraps, and if you fall, get up. There's no room for crying. There's no room for emotions. I would, what you would see in a movie, cry into your pillow, very, very quiet, or I I would save it for like the bathroom stall when I was at school if there was ever a moment of my unraveling, but never at home. There was never space at home to be an emotional self.
And did you, I'm sorry about that. I relate.
No.
I relate wholly to that. Did you feel like, did you gather that information just on your own, or was that sort of explicitly or inexplicitly directed to you by your parents?
I think we just didn't see emotion from our parents. You know, like there wasn't immense joy, there wasn't play, there wasn't excitement. Like it just was. I don't know. And like my parents are very lovely people and they're very loving. Like we always say, "I love you." We're affectionate, but it just was the emotional extremes weren't accepted, and it wasn't forced on us. Like it wasn't like, "Shut up," like, "Why are you crying?" or anything like that. It was just more, I think, that receptiveness. Like you knew when, I knew if my dad got called out for a SWAT call and was gone for 12 hours, the last thing that I can run to him when he gets home after, having dealt with the worst of humanity is like, "Oh, this little girl, made me feel bad about myself today." Like, how is my dad going to respond to that when he's just seen something so extreme and so violent and so devastating that he too is having to process and internalize? So I think it was just this like awareness that like we deal with our emotions in different ways. Even though I was a very emotional person, I still am ridiculously sensitive. But that's now my favorite thing about myself.
Yeah, that's a superpower.
Yeah, I fully believe that. And it used to be an insecurity of mine for so long, like caring too much, wearing my heart on my sleeve. I always got so much trouble from people for wearing my heart on my sleeve. And now I think it's one of my best assets. Like it's just one of my favorite things about myself.
Yeah,
so.
it's an amazing trait. Did you pick up on, I'm curious, like how aware were you of the danger and you mentioned like your father dealing with these individuals, the worst of the worst or whatever you want to call them. Like how aware were you of that danger and how did you pick up on that?
Oh man. I mean, there's so many stories. That's the thing. There were so many stories. Like if we went over to a friend's house, of course they would talk about work. They're adults. That's what adults do. You vent about work. And it would always, like, we wouldn't be paying attention, but we could always hear what was going on, even though we maybe didn't understand it at the time. And I remember, I think it was my 8th grade year. We moved into a new house in a totally different neighborhood, and I was going to be transitioning to high school. And there was a bus hijacking in our neighborhood. And my dad got the call, of course, it was literally on our front doorstep. And my mom took me and my brother to Blockbuster, just a casual night, like what we would do on a Friday. And as we're walking out, we see the bus zoom by, and then like 20, 30 cop cars bolting after it. And this is a quiet neighborhood in La Mesa, San Diego. And I knew my dad was on the call because he would always say something to my mom that like there's a bus hijacking and like he would be out the door. And so that was the first time I was like, oh my God, like, is my dad okay? Like that was when I kind of became aware of, wow, like this is literally at our doorstep. This is so close to home. And I think from that point on, I was just so aware of it all the time and just how exhausted he was and sometimes short just because he was just so frazzled. But you're aware of these things.
Yeah. You were, so it sounds like you were very much sort of accommodating his emotional state and sort of setting aside yours.
Yeah. And I think up until a very recent point, I still did.
Yeah.
That was like a burden. I don't even want to call it a burden because he carried the burden of the world on his shoulders. But like as his daughter, like I wanted to be the positive thing in his life. And so I carried more of that than I did being the one who needed him, I think. Mm-hmm. And I still needed him. I was a writer. So every time I had a new project, I take it to him when he got home from work, and he loved those things. And those things brought him happiness. So I tried to fill his days with those. But that that required me to push out like the darker side of just like teenage angst. And I was bullied really, really bad in middle school, but like they had no idea. They didn't know I self-harmed. I was I had an eating disorder in high school. So it was like they didn't know these things. I was going to therapy at school once a week, so I think sometimes twice a week to help with things, and they had no idea. I was a good student. I was a good kid. I always had a smile on my face, because I don't know, I was just aware that their life wasn't the easiest. And so I wanted to be the easiest thing for them, if that makes sense.
It completely makes sense, and I relate to it very, very deeply. And it's just so heartbreaking to hear, because I think that, certainly your dad was dealing with a lot, and this is not to point any fingers at anyone. It's just to say, like, you as a child, as a teenager, we were talking about it before, like having those support systems is so important, especially at that age, and you not being able to, or feeling like you need to put that aside and sort of give your dad the joy because the other stuff might burden him more or upset him or whatever it may be. Like that's just a hard thing to deal with. And I imagine many of us can relate to that, and I just like want to tell people out there listening that, like, if you are younger and you are sort of still living at home, like talk about your stuff. Like, I know, your parents are there to support you. And if they're not going to support you, then you need to find that out. Like, you need to talk about this stuff. And it's so hard. And I'm not saying like it was, you did what you had to do. You were surviving in a way. And, that's just a heartbreaking sort of dynamic that I think many of us have experienced. Definitely.
But it's, I think what was so, the silver lining, if you will, was I was able to find the people in my life that did matter, like who, not who did matter, but who could help me through the emotions. I had so many teachers. I was so close to my teachers for this exact reason. My tennis coach, she's the one who helped me with my eating disorder. She would make me sit down every day with her at lunch, and I would eat lunch with her because she wanted to make sure. And she fed me like flaxseed and like really disgusting stuff that no 15-year-old wants to be eating. But she made that point. She made that point to be that person who was in my life and who was present. And, and we talked, and it may not have been my parents, and I don't blame them or hold any resentment for that, but I was able to turn to very strong, very emotionally present people elsewhere, especially through school. So there's always somebody.
Yeah.
If you can't find that relationship in your parents, like I really urge you to find. I hope it's your parents. I hope it's your mom and dad, of course. I hope you can run home into their arms and cry on their shoulder. And I can do that now. I never could do that when I was younger. But if you can't find that, there are people in your life that are worth seeking out.
Yeah.
And mine was school. School was my kind of like army of mental health soldiers that just like helped me get through the worst of it.
What did you have anorexia?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. It was a mix between anorexia and bulimia, because once I started playing on the tennis team, it was much more like I had to keep up stamina when everybody else was around. So it was like protein bars and fruit snacks and things that the team would eat together. I used to eat an absurd amount of donuts, but then I'd go and puke them all up. But like nobody saw the puking it all up part. They just saw me, oh gosh, you can eat a dozen donuts and stay perfectly thin. It's like they had no idea that I was going through what I was going through.
So your parents weren't aware at all either?
No, I honestly don't think, well, my mom will probably be aware now, but I don't think they were aware. I kept it under wraps like really, 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 really well. I mean, I think we all do when we have an eating disorder. Like, that's not something that you broadcast. It just kind of, it just is. It's just a thing that you deal with, whether it's starving yourself or binge and then purging.
Yeah, it becomes a weird shame, but also like a badge of honor that you're holding, which is strange to say, but it's like it's a power move in a way.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's probably the most accurate way I've ever heard anybody say it, the power move.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I had anorexia myself, so I've experienced it.
And yours was, if you don't mind me asking,
No.
yours was later in life, correct?
Yeah, I was late teens into my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
And was there anything that caused yours in particular? I know I've read about it, but I like to have the conversation.
Oh, no, I appreciate you asking. I've done a lot of writing about this and a lot of thinking about this throughout the years. I think it was a combination of me feeling out of control in my family.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt a little bit like an odd one out in my family, and right around, my parents always had a pretty rocky relationship and separated many times and got divorced twice and married back together twice. And my father, very abusive and just, I don't speak with him anymore. But there was that period of time where I was sort of trying to mediate their marriage. And, it was kind of like me on one side, sort of trying to listen to my father as he berated my mother and called her names. And then on the other side, listening to my mother cry and talk about how this is what God wants, and her crying on my shoulder. And so it was kind of like that back and forth, and I kind of tried to mediate it, and it just, obviously it didn't work. And I just felt out of control, and I started just processing my depression and anxiety from those experiences through running a lot and, just control in my eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry that you had to take on that role in between your parents.
Oh, it's okay. I've learned many things through that experience, and I'm just grateful that I was able to get through it and sort of be able to talk about it with other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here to be able to tell that story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned earlier you are a survivor of sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about that experience a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I've come to terms with it pretty more recently. I mean, you never come to terms with it. That's the wrong thing to say. But I've become more outspoken about it. So I'm comfortable going through it with whatever path you see fit. I'm an open book about it now.
Okay.
So,
do you how did it happen? Can you explain that experience a little bit?
Yeah. I was traveling solo through Southeast Asia at the end of 2015. I had the lifelong dream of studying orangutans in the wild, and I finally made that dream come true, which was extraordinary.
Wow, and that sounds remarkable.
It will forever be the best thing I've ever done with my life. I don't know if I'll ever be able to top it.
How can you?
You can't. If anybody's ever interested in Sumatra, please personally reach out. I feel every person needs to see it once in their life. It just changes everything inside you. It's one of the most powerful experiences I think you'll ever have.
Wow.
So there's so many layers to it. So before I made the move, because it was a move, I'd applied through the Orangutan Health Project, and I planned to be there for a while. So I sold all my possessions, I sold my business, I sold just everything that I owned in preparation for this. And this was going to be like a pretty, like, one-way ticket, no time limit sort of thing. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, my cousin passed away tragically in a car accident. And every fiber of my being was telling me to stay. But it almost felt like a disservice to her life if I had and not gone and accomplished my dreams. And so my aunt kind of at her funeral gave me a hug and told me, like, you need to go, you need to do this. And so she's the reason that I followed through. At the same time, my best friend of 7-8 years, I finally told him I loved him for the first time. It was kind of like a parting letter to every person in my life. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna tell everyone that I love them and then be gone. And if it's a rejection thing, like, it's okay. I'm in the middle of the rainforest and it's not going to hurt me. And so I wrote. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to interrupt real quick because I'm very curious about where did that come from? Where did the sort of urge to sell all your belongings, write these letters, go off and, hang out with orangutans?
I was taking, so it was my last semester at college, and I was taking a primate behavior course. And I had been studying, there was a orangutan at the San Diego Zoo named Janie, who I would go and visit every Wednesday and kind of do my own observations. And I had no idea that it was a thing. I had no clue that you could actually go and do this. And I found anthropology and specifically primatology. So this was like my life trajectory, like PhD, field research, primate conservation. Like, this was going to be my like life view. And my professor had sent out an email asking, if there were any grad students that were interested. And I wasn't a grad student yet, but I was just kind of like making a mental checklist. And that's when I found the Orangutan Health Project. They just required you to be interested. Like, you still had to fill out an application, but they took volunteers, and that's what I wanted to do. And I remember asking my professor, and she's like, I've been in this field for a very long time. And when an opportunity like this comes up, you just take it. Like, your education's always going to be here, but this opportunity might not be. And she lived in Indonesia, and she that's where her research was. And she was like my big factor in just like pulling the trigger and doing it. So on my last 15 units of my college degree, I quit school to go take off after this dream. And then with the passing of my cousin, that was kind of like I don't want to say like an awakening, but it just felt like kind of like a reality check. Like, we are not guaranteed time on this earth at all.
Yeah.
And I had lived so much of my life paralyzed by fear and living for somebody else's dream and in abusive relationships. And I was like, it was like me taking back everything that I had not lost, but just had never claimed for myself, and love being one of them. And I didn't want me leaving. I didn't know when I was going to be back, and the people that were in my life, I didn't want them to question what they meant to me, or if I was running away from them for any reason. I wanted them to know that I loved them and that they shaped who I was and were such a huge part of my identity, but that identity needed to grow. So it was like a big culmination of things. It was a very inspirational and very tragic period in life.
Yeah.
So the love letters was my way of, I think, coping with that.
It's a beautiful sentiment, and I think something we all need to do from time to time. So good job.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard. I think I drank 4 bottles of wine that night by myself, and like pouring your heart, it's a very vulnerable piece, and there was a lot of pain in it too. Mm-hmm. But that was just part of it. I just needed to do it. Like, that's what my heart was saying, and I followed my heart, and I'm so glad that I did.
So one of the letters you mentioned, you said you loved your longtime friend?
Yeah, my now husband, actually.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, he and I met while I was playing tennis in high school. He was always my best friend. I went to his winter formal my senior year, so we've had some history. And yeah, he had been in committed relationships and I had been in committed relationships. He was in San Francisco on a very corporate path, and I was more of this like free spirit, kind of free falling through life. So it just never lined up for us. And he actually, he's the reason why I smiled after I lost my cousin. We lost my cousin. He called me like 2 days after. He just sensed something was wrong. And he had lost his mom pretty tragically in college. And so he was the only person in that moment who could 100% empathize with what I was feeling and experiencing. And he made me laugh. I hadn't left the bed in like 4 days. I hadn't left the house. I hadn't eaten anything. And he found a way to make me laugh, like a belly laugh, like a, just one of those like loud chuckles.
That's awesome.
And it was incredible. And so we hung up the phone, and the first thing that he texted me, he said, "I just want you to remember it's a beautiful day to be alive." And that kind of just changed everything. And so I've always known that I've loved him. I just never was out with it because I didn't feel like it was the right time or if it was the right thing. So I finally did. And I braced for the rejection, and I woke up the next day to an email that just said, "I've been in love with you since the day that I've met you, and I don't know what we're going to do about this, but I'm going to find a way to be with you."
That's so beautiful.
It was really, it's a good love story. It's a really good love story.
It really is.
It's amazing. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
He's the reason why I was planning on staying with the project in Sumatra the entire time. And because of him, like I knew I had to come back to give us a chance. And so I, instead of staying in Sumatra, I decided to travel for an undisclosed amount of time, just until I was ready to come home. And he was super supportive. He knew that he knew it's something that I've been wanting to do my entire life, and he gave me that freedom to do it, which I still owe so much gratitude for his understanding in that. And I know he's the reason why I was able to get through my assault and through my trauma. He's the most incredible human. He really is.
I love it. So you write this letter, you go off to the orangutans, and how does the assault happen?
So I ended up in Cambodia in October, at the end of October, and I had some of my things stolen out of a locker. There were like 8 or 12 of us that had belongings stolen. And at the time, I had withdrawn a significant amount of money because I wasn't where I was going to be. I wasn't sure if there was going to be ATMs. And I had hid it in my backpack in a wallet in a very steep pocket. And I went to this deserted island, like no electricity, no Wi-Fi, in the middle of nowhere. And as a guest, like I showed up, and I discovered, trying to leave the island, that all of my money had been stolen. And so I stayed on the island helping bartend and manage the guest house. I pretty much took on the manager role because the guy I was working for was pretty much an alcoholic and like didn't do very well, as are most expats.
Gotcha.
Living on deserted islands, I think. Things got really bad, but I had met some incredible people there on Côte d'Ivoire, and 2 of them were Australians, Olga and Jake, and they were just like, my energy was drawn to them. So I escaped the island. I packed all my things, and I was sick at the time, so I was like, I just need to go see a doctor on the mainland. So that was like my out. Mm-hmm. I didn't say goodbye to anybody, and I just got on the boat, and I left. Went to the doctor, got checked out, and then went and saw Olga and Jake. And that was the first week in November. And we were all out at a music and art festival. The little town that we were in hosts an expat festival that celebrates Khmer culture. It's a fascinating dynamic to see, Westerners who've moved to this place celebrate the local traditions and history. So we wanted to be a part of it. And we were out drinking, which at that point, I was, wasting away on an island. So my alcohol level was pretty steep. Like I could get through an entire bottle by myself and like not be buzzed or incoherent in any way.
Yeah. And
we were at a bar, and I made friends with the bartender, like this Finnish dude that was just like one of the nicest people, or so I thought. And Olga and Jake and Christina went home, and I stayed. And I went to the bathroom after ordering a drink. I came back and there was a shot waiting for me, as well as my drink. And I denied the shot, kept my drink. A guy sat down next to me, and the last thing that I remember are the color of his eyes. Yeah, I woke up the next day covered in mud. My underwear was missing, which I didn't like piece together at all, but I just felt awful. Like I had been tied to train tracks and had a freight train blaring in my ear for hours. Like it was one of the worst pains that I think I've ever been in. And, wow. I decided not to meet up with them for the arts festival. And I was sitting downstairs, and a guy comes and sits at my table with the eyes. Like I don't remember anything from the night besides his eyes, and it was him. And the guest house owner comes out with a baseball bat and chases him from the table. She's yelling at him in Khmer and just so upset, so visibly upset, which startled me and like everyone around us. She didn't speak any English, so like we couldn't figure out what she was mad about, but she chased this guy out of her guest house. And I went upstairs to get ready, for the day and change. And the husband finally came and grabbed me and said that we needed to talk. And with one other female traveler, I was told that I was raped outside of the guest house. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I remember it now, but I didn't at the time. But police were called. They had him in custody. They did nothing. No charges were pressed because they just saw me as a drunk tourist. Like I was completely unresponsive. The poor hostel owner had to like carry me over his shoulder upstairs because I was just a limp, like a dead body.
You were in shock.
I was drugged. I was completely out. Like there was no physical, like I was slurring. I appeared very, very, very intoxicated, which I wasn't at that point in the night. And so they're just like, no, she's drunk. She wanted it. We're going to let him go. She's a tourist. She'll be gone in a couple days. Just leave it be.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a thing. It's a very big thing that you never expect to happen to you. Of course, like it's not something that you can comprehend ever happening to anyone. And like solo travel is my heart and soul. So for something so tragic to happen while I was traveling solo, I just carried so much shame for wanting this for my life, for being so adamant about being on my own and this fierce independence. And yeah, just that shame of like, look where it got me, like I ended up being one of those people. And it was so awful because then it was like victim blaming and personal shaming and just all emotions that I didn't know how to channel. And I also didn't remember the assault. So it was so frustrating because like I felt different and my body was responding different and my emotions were all over the place, but I didn't have any recollection of it. So it was just this very intense, confusing experience during what was supposed to be this transformative, amazing, trip that I've been dreaming of my entire life. Whew, wow. Haven't talked about that aloud in a long time.
It's so, I'm at a loss of words, but I was reading some statistics about sexual assault, and I think it's 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted, which is mind-boggling to me, and it's just so tragic. I just can't.
Yeah.
That's a giant number.
It's, and I could go on that tangent forever. Last year, I finally wrote about it very publicly on Medium. I wrote about it twice. One was in like the darkness of night, and the other one was very public and very, like, I had people following the story that I was writing, and I finally talked about the assault. And I'm not kidding. I woke up the next day and my inbox was full of hundreds of women in my life. Hundreds. I think I had something absurd, like 120 new messages. And it was like, me too. I've never talked about this. I was sexually assaulted here, but I've never told anyone. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for giving me a voice. I thought I was alone. And that 1 in 4 statistic, I've always heard it, but that was when I really, really, really realized that it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And it's so heartbreaking that so many women have had to go through this violation of everything, of their security, of their body, of their mental health, just everything. It's one of the most tragic things. And so prevalent. It really is. It really is.
How did you walk me through a little bit of your experiences after this event and how sort of you came to terms with it? You know, maybe that's not the right phrasing, but how you sort of talked about it to yourself, and sort of eventually maybe to the point where how'd you get to talk about it publicly?
Yeah. I mean, it was a wild ride. Immediately after the assault, I was so lost and I didn't tell anybody. I kept it a secret. And Olga and Jake were leaving. I didn't tell them either. And I was going to be alone again. And I was just so terrified. And so I did the most reckless thing that I could have done, but I did a motorbike trip through Vietnam by myself. And I bought a motorbike in the south and rode north. And that was like I mean, you talk about a road to healing, like that was a literal road to healing. Like I was on the road for 10, 13 hours at a time by myself. So I had a lot of time to think and I had a lot of time to put together those pieces. It was also a very like meditative experience, even though it was terrifying. It was so scary to do that alone, but it was a way to punish myself as well as a way to like explore it, you know, like it was this weird, like if something like the worst thing that I feel could ever happen to me has already happened. Like I was raped and that is like the worst case scenario for me. So I thought on this ride through Vietnam, like if something else bad is going to happen, it's going to happen. And if not, if I can live through this, then maybe there's something beyond this and maybe there's a point to all the madness. So that was, I don't know, that was like me testing the limits in a way. Like if I die, I die and nobody has to know. But if I live through this, like I need to confront this and I need to work on it. I got really sick in Malaysia after the trip and I went to the doctors, potentially for dengue fever. It's like it's worse than malaria, but it's transmitted through mosquitoes. And it's like take the flu and multiply that by 500. It's like one of the most intense pains.
Yeesh.
It's really bad. And it's very common though. Like you can survive it if you get medical attention. But I went and my blood test came back negative for tropical diseases. And so the doctor asked me, you know, have you been exposed to an STD? And I said, no. I was like, oh, there's no way. And then I remembered, it was like, oh my God, I was raped. And he's like, you know, like this could be HIV. And he asked me how long it had happened. And I told him 4 weeks. And he's like, you know, I wish we could test tourists, but we can't. You need to go home and you need to be tested for this. And I remember reaching out to the embassy. I reached out to my best friend, Madison, and I finally told her. And she mobilized immediately. She's the most incredible soul. She saved my life. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. What
I
did
don't.
sorry, what was her name? Melanie?
Madison.
Madison.
Yeah, she helped me contact the embassy. She got all the contact information, and she helped me do research to find a home kit. Because AIDS and HIV are very prevalent in Malaysia, and so they actually have home kits that you can do. And I mean, I went to 30, 40 pharmacies in search of a home kit. And every day she'd check in, like, how did it go today? Like, what do you need? How can I help you? And Kyle was supposed to be coming out to Bali for New Year's. And so I knew he was going to want to be intimate. I knew he was going to want to, sexually intimate. Like, we hadn't seen each other in months. And I was and I was looking forward to that, I was really looking forward to that intimacy with him. But if I had HIV or had been exposed, there was no way I was going to put him at risk for that. And so I finally told Kyle. I told him I was raped and that I potentially was exposed to HIV, but that they couldn't test me. I was expecting him to run just because it's such a heavy thing, and we weren't really together, so I didn't expect him to be there for me.
Yeah.
But he woke up and, he called me. He's like, I'm going to do everything I can. We're going to get you help. He reached out to a couple of his friends who were doctors and asked like what the next steps are. And, they both, like, if I didn't have those two in the moment, not blame me, not shame me, not question me, like, they did everything right. And they were there for me in extraordinary ways. And I think that was so vital to those like first few days of kind of like having to face it. So I came home January in 2016, and I moved straight to San Francisco to be with Kyle. And I went to Planned Parenthood and got tested, and fortunately it came back negative. So that was like a huge relief, but I was starting to have PTSD episodes, which I didn't recognize at the time. But it was bad. Like, I would be in the back of a car, and there would be wind whipping through the window, and I'd have a full PTSD attack. I would cower down shivering. I'd like black out, like almost like down a black hole, and I couldn't communicate. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. It was really, really, really intense. And poor Kyle, he's on the receiving end of this, and he's just like trying so hard to help, and sometimes that would make it worse.
Yeah. And at that point, did you go see someone to help with the PTSD?
I did. At the time, there was this, it's still an amazing app. It's called ginger.io, and it's based out of San Francisco, and it was in one of my women's support groups, and it's essentially therapy in home. First, you're partnered with a coach who asks some exploratory questions, sees kind of what you're dealing with, and they partner you with a therapist. And what was so amazing about it was I could be in the comfort of my home in my living room doing these sessions. And I'm sure a lot of people have struggled in therapy. That physical space can be quite triggering. You don't feel comfortable. You feel very insecure. Maybe you don't feel safe just because it's not a place of familiarity. But because I was like at home in my comfort zone, I was able to open up a lot faster than I think I would have if I had done therapy any other way. It was incredible. Like, my therapist was a classic burner, who was also just one of the most brilliant women on the planet. And, immediately she's like, this is PTSD and this is anxiety. We're not going to put you on medication. Like, let's see if we can work through this through other like creative outlets. I don't know like what the course of therapy is called at all, but essentially it's focusing on other tasks. So like mine was weaving. And so I would sit for hours and just weave because it silenced my mind. And so if I were having like a panic attack or a PTSD like onset episode, I'd pull up my loom and like start weaving it. And that was a way that I could turn off my mind and like manage all the attacks. And it was the most incredible healing avenue that I never knew existed. And it was shocking for me, because I've always assumed that medication was always the right route to go. That's what you've been told, at least,
Yeah, it all
But
depends on who you are.
And I think because she was a burner, I think they have a much different mindset. So what do you mean by that,
burner?
Oh, Burning Man.
I see.
Like a veteran Burning Man.
Got it. So
yeah,
she's a little hippy dippy.
Yeah. She's a veteran. So when you see her on paper, this woman is just like one of the smartest people I think I've ever interacted with. But she has that burner core of just like a holistic approach, like a yoga, meditation. Meditation was huge. Headspace was huge.
Okay.
Those were like paramount to my, I wouldn't call it success because it was healing, but paramount to my success of being able to manage a lot of my episodes. Headspace specifically, like Headspace was such a godsend because it was guided. So it just helped you acknowledge your thoughts rather than shutting down the mind. And that was huge at the time. Like I needed that more than anything.
Yeah. I've used Headspace. It is helpful. So I'm curious about like how are these tools, the meditation, the weaving, how are they sort of helping you through things emotionally? Like, are you, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, no, please finish.
No, I'm just curious, like, cause, a lot of times, meditation, for example, it's about, or mindfulness, it's really about, being in the thing, like sort of noticing it, recognizing that we are, especially mindfulness, I guess I'm speaking to, we are here, we are in pain, sort of taking note of the things. And often, maybe the next steps are, through other means to sort of understand the things a little bit better and how they impact us.
I think with, especially with the weaving, that became my emotion. Like you can always tell, with any form of art, you can see a lot of people's emotions through their art, depending on the medium. And weaving, you could tell when I was the most anxious, because the lines would be super jagged or the patterns would be wrong, or I would do something wrong and like cut in the middle of the thing. So they were always very emotive. And it also forced me to be very mindful, like I had to, I'm sure you haven't like sat down and like played with a loom, but it's very like you have over for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of layers.
Yeah.
So it's a very in-depth process. So that was my way of like sitting, thinking, being, understanding what was going on. Like if I were feeling triggered or if I were feeling just, God, I could name any emotion. And then I would be able to go into therapy and be like, okay, this is how I experienced it this week. And it was a way for me to be able to actually articulate what was going on. Because before it was just me shutting down. It was me like, I don't know what this is. So like, I'm going to go internal and like slam the door and close myself in and protect myself. And this became like a way for me to kind of like bring that barrier down and open up a little more. Which was, it was what I needed. It was a way that helped me heal.
Yeah. And
I know it's not for everyone because we all require different attention and different energy and different methods, different approaches because we're dealing with something so different. But for me, I'm a very artistic person. I'm a very emotional person. So she nailed it. Like she knew exactly what I needed to do to help me get through like these really intense things that I was experiencing.
Yeah. It's amazing. I hadn't thought about weaving as a means to sort of therapy, but like it makes sense, because it's another sort of mindful, semi-mindful like activity, rote activity that that makes sense. It makes sense. It's like a walking meditation or some activity that you do that just comes natural to your sort of physiological self, giving you the sort of opportunity to explore the headspace.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when she said weaving, I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what do you want me to sit and do? Like, I'll do the painting thing, fine, but like, what? And she's like, no, like, do something with your hands that allows you to get out of your mind, and put those energy and like those emotions elsewhere. And so I did. I like did all this research on weaving, and I got really good because it was just the episodes were so intense. But like that was my release. And that was like Kyle's cue too. If I was having a really bad day, like he'd just come home and I'm on the couch like weaving with like just this very focused face, and he'd be like, "Okay, hi babe, hope you had a good day. I'm gonna go grab dinner. I'll be back in a little bit." So became a good visual cue in the house too when I was feeling my most triggered.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was actually like a really amazing tool. Like he knew if I were just having a bad day and the weave was out, like to give me space and to let me work through it, and I would, be ready on my own time. So I was so lucky with all of that. I really was.
That sounds amazing. I'm so happy that those the weaving and the headspace, those have helped you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What did, like, when you after you weave and you sort of go back into the therapist's office, what did you guys talk about?
I mean, it was, I think as with all therapy, like they want to see the big picture. So we definitely talked about my parents. I know we talked about like my father and my mom at the beginning, but there were a lot of things that happened in later adult life that just effed me up. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. So I'm just gonna.
Oh, all language is valid.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They fucked you up?
They fucked me up, man. Like not my mom. Like she was the victim in all of it, but like what happened between my parents just fucking set both me and my brother back by eons, emotionally and everything else. And so, in going through therapy, like they want to dive deep into every facet. And at the time I was not doing very well with my father. And so I think that was at the forefront of our conversations a lot, because she knew that Kyle was a very healthy relationship for me. So she didn't want me to translate baggage that I had with my father into this very constructive relationship that I had with a very stable, person.
Yeah.
And self-sabotage and everything else. So there was a lot of what the, divorce did to you, what happened, the abusive relationships I had been in. Like it just was a full plate of things. We didn't talk about the assault as much, which I feel like I'm very grateful for. She let me do it when it was on my own, but she didn't push me on it. If I wanted to talk about it, she was there. And if I didn't, there are so many other things that we can talk about. And she followed my lead. She never made me feel pressed or uncomfortable or that I had to give up this information. She knew when I was ready to, I'd come to her, and I did.
That's great.
Yeah, it was good. I'm a big advocate for therapy now. I didn't used to be, but
it's
Jody
a wonderful
really,
tool.
It is. It's amazing. It's scary and it's hard and it hurts and it sucks. But they have the tools that you don't have yourself. And every therapist goes to a therapist. Like every person needs that outside perspective on the things that we're going on and going through.
Absolutely.
And yeah, they're trained. Like they're so trained to do this. And there are people who are fast to write the prescription, and like don't really have that investment. But there are so many good therapists out there that really, really, really want you to succeed.
I agree.
So that's incredible. It's so incredible. They change lives, and I don't think they get enough credit for it.
Yeah. Yes, this is a pro therapy podcast.
Very pro therapy. Yes.
I'm curious about, as you start relaying these experiences, these traumas, publicly, how did your family, how did your parents react?
I think it's a little mixed. I'm not very close with my family. My extended family, I've actually kind of distanced myself pretty intentionally from a lot of them. So I knew that if it came out, they would support me or they didn't. And if they didn't, I didn't really care. My father at the time, our relationship was extremely volatile. And we had a pretty intense fight when it all came out. And I almost used it against him. I was like, this is why I didn't tell you I was raped, because of how you're acting right now. And like in that exact moment, I cut him off like all communication for the better part, I think, of a year. And I felt so much better for it, because it wasn't like I have to protect your emotions right now. Like I was protecting me for the first time in possibly my life with him. And my mom I love her. She's the sweetest human being, but I think she's very, like everything's okay. Everything's fine. Carries on with her life. She's happy.
Yeah.
Nothing will disturb that, which is great. She has found her peace. So I don't think she was as, she didn't talk about it. She's aware. We still don't talk about it. I think it makes her uncomfortable because she doesn't know how to talk about it, and that's okay. She loves me and supports me in other ways, and that's fine. The rest of the family, I have a couple aunts that have been super wonderful, that have reached out every now and again and just checked in to make sure I'm okay. But it wasn't really something that I turned to my family with at all, like my blood family.
Right.
I have an amazing community of humans that I've personally curated over the years, and they were, oh man, talk about like supportive. Like these guys I'm the luckiest person in the world for how many people I have in my life that are like unconditionally present and unconditionally loving. It's just so special and so rare. So when you ask about family, that's not who I think of. Like, the blood relatives, I always think of this family that I formed elsewhere. And all of them were extraordinary.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. I recognize that my journey is a significantly more positive one than most people have. I recognize that because I have heard the stories and been on the receiving end of trauma far greater than mine. And I count my blessings every day, and I try to show up for people in the way that others have shown up for me. Because I wouldn't be here, without the people who showed me kindness and understanding and patience and love in those very, very, very broken moments. Yeah. So all I can do is now forward that to other people who trust me enough to open up about their assaults and try to be that positive force rather than, another shame trigger that so many of us have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. We all should take lessons from Hayli in that we have these experiences and, we struggle through them, we learn through them, and being able to share that experience with others in the hope and goal of providing people with that solace in that they're not alone, that sort of, there's such a healing, beautiful part of that. And I think that's really what life should be all about, is us having experiences, whatever they may be, and sharing those experiences with others in order to heal, to learn, to glean, whatever, to connect, to embrace empathy, all those things. So, I just wanted to call that out. I think that's important.
Thank you. It takes a lot of courage, I think, to be able to stand in that truth and admit that certain things have happened to you. But once you do, you become empowered by it. It becomes yours rather than somebody else's, and
Absolutely.
I remember what it was like to be afraid, to feel like I was alone and that nobody would understand. And that's just not the case. That's in anything. It doesn't have to be something as traumatic as sexual assault or rape. Doesn't have to be, abuse. It can be other aspects of life. But if you stand in your truth and offer transparency and trust to others, like, it's such a powerful connection that you make and one that I think can change somebody's life or save a life in one way or another.
Hear, hear. How are you doing today? How are you dealing with your PTSD and your anxiety?
I didn't have an episode for a while. As much as my assault is associated with travel is also like my healing element. And this past year, we've been able to do a lot of travels, and that has been so wonderful for me and such an incredible opportunity for growth and healing. But more recently, I had a pretty severe PTSD episode. Like I called my best friend and told her that I thought I was going to die because my body was reacting so, I don't know the right word. I couldn't breathe. My throat was closing up. Like I really thought I was going to die.
Wow.
And that was the most intense it had ever been. And I just called her sobbing. I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it. Like wherever I'm supposed to be going right now, can you please call my mom, tell her I love her? Like it was that bad. And so that's when I recognized like this, you're not done yet. You're not done doing the work.
Yeah.
The work still needs to continue. And not that I've ignored it, I've just haven't been home long enough to be able to work on it. And so now I'm here for summer. I'm here, staying put for a little while just so that I can go to therapy and get help and work with some of these things that are kind of reemerging.
That's good.
Yeah, it's, I don't think you're never done with it. It's never going to just be okay. It gets better.
Is that overwhelming to you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, but I trust that I'm loved enough that I'm going to get through it. And that's the most important element. Like I know without a doubt that people love me and they will help me through this no matter how bad it gets.
We need that, don't we? We need those people.
Definitely.
Because it is overwhelming. I mean, life is overwhelming.
It's hard. Life is hard.
It is. And I say it at the beginning of every show, like we're in this thing together, and seek out, like you have relayed that you've chosen, you have curated, to use your word, this group of people in your life that are supportive and loving and love you unconditionally and accept you for who you are. And the more we can be that to others, the better things will be for all of us.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much love can change your life until I let go of every toxic, element that was holding me back. And once I experienced unconditional love, like I knew that was the answer to so many things. And my life has been rich and abundant ever since. And I feel like we can all extend that elsewhere. There's always somebody in your life that could use a little bit more love. Just love everyone. Like just, even if it's your local coffee guy, just show your appreciation. And it goes so far.
Yeah. Channel the burners.
I've met so many, and they just it's that community aspect. It's that, life bond. Like we are all here. We're all in this.
Yeah.
Your journey is my journey, and anything I can do to help is my purpose in this life. And I guess do as the burners do.
It is a beautiful sentiment. I wholeheartedly agree. How are you? I saw on Facebook you started to share some stories and things. Like, how are you creatively processing and sort of working through your mental health, through creative outlets and storytelling and art?
Podcasting has been a huge one. I love the opportunity to connect with people and kind of just share parallels in our lives that maybe we don't recognize exist. And I've started curating some content of I call them pen pals because I've always written to them, but I've never had a recorded session with them. So started doing that, and that's been really cathartic to dive in real deep with these people that I love more than life, and to just to be able to talk about our mental health openly and our struggles, and like how we found each other when we needed to, and how our lives have improved, since these incredible experiences or not so incredible experiences happened. I'm working on I'm the editor of a travel magazine, and there's a couple of the authors that I'm currently partnering with, helping write their story. They are working through grief after having lost their mothers, and they're doing phenomenal things in their communities, centered around, using these people when you're not ready to lose them. And there's stories like this that are kind of just like falling into my lap that have been very inspiring to find. So I find this, I don't know, there's just this incredible energy right now that is drawing these people to me, and I consider myself very, very grateful.
That's amazing.
They're out there. Yeah. And even your community has been so paramount to healing. Like just these heart warriors that just care so immensely about, this world that we live in, and looking out for each other, and just constant dialogue, even if it's not like a full article. It's just that chance to connect and to either share somebody else's story or share your own, whatever avenue that is. It's such a wonderful tool for our mental health.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Keep connecting, keep sort of telling your truth, even if it's difficult, because people like our community, people who you're connecting with, they'll be there to shed some empathy onto you. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of tragedy in the world, but there's always people who are speaking about that tragedy that make the pain a little less.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to kind of find those people, and that requires you to kind of reach out a little bit and go into territories that maybe like you're not the most comfortable.
Yeah.
To find those people, and then they help you, and they enrich you, and they encourage you, and they bring you along in their journey. And it's just such a beautiful thing when you open your heart to those people.
I concur.
All you need is love,
What's that?
I said all you need is love. Like,
all you need is love. Yep, I agree with that. I think that's a beautiful place to start wrapping it up. I just appreciate you for sharing that and your experiences, and my heart was broken, but I think sort of mended a little bit again, to learn that you found some healing and growth, and you are working through things in ways that work for you, and in healthy ways. And I'm just happy to know you and connect with you, and just know you.
Likewise. Thank you again for creating this space. I think what you're doing is just so important right now. And I know that so many people are going to find you, whether it be, episode 100 or from the beginning, and you're doing what we all need. And I just really appreciate you having me here and sharing this moment with me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm very happy to hear that. Well, we always sort of wrap up the show with talking about empathy heroes. Is there an empathy hero you wanted to call out?
I'm going to say my husband.
Okay.
Of course. One. Yeah, he's just the most amazing person that I know. Madison, even though she's full-time mom to twins and just finished her degree, she's been there for me in so many ways recently, and I just love her so much. Just any person that's reached out to say, ask, like, are you okay? There's too many to count. I have so many of them, and I'm so lucky.
Awesome. Well, my empathy heroes this week, I mentioned it at the top of the show, are the authors I met at Pasadena Mental Health Day over this weekend. Their names are Lauren Miller, Brandy Colbert, Marisa Reichart, and Carrie Kletter. They each have books out now. Their most recent books all sort of involve around characters who have mental illness of some kind. And they just spoke really compassionately about the subject, and I'm excited to read the books. And hopefully maybe I gave them all a Yumbi Empathy sticker. So potentially one of them will be on the show at some point. Who knows?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. I wanted to call them out. And I'll make sure to link for the listeners and for you, Hayli, I'll make sure to link all their books in the show notes for this episode.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And so before we go, is there a place where listeners can connect with you, maybe connect with your podcast, Hayli?
Yeah. So I will send on the details. I do have the website up. It's www.penpalspodcast.com. These people have been my pen pals for years. It's people that I've met through travels. So it's a little bit of travel, a little bit of humanness, a little bit of mental health. Just really inspiring people that are doing amazing things. And Pilgrim Magazine is the magazine that I work for. We are launching on June 4th. You can find us on Instagram at Pilgrim, Pilgrim Magazine. And we have amazing content coming. So if you're just looking for a few stories to spark joy and inspiration in your life, we have some amazing authors that are going to be sharing their journeys.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm excited to read that.
I'm excited too. It's just so incredible. People are amazing.
Is it print and digital or just digital?
Digital for now. This is our first digital publication launch, but it'll be a monthly submission. And also too, if anybody has amazing stories of their travels, you guys can always reach out to me at Hayli@pilgrimmag.com. I love reading people's stories, and if you have a story but you're not sure how to tell it, please let me know. I love helping with that too.
Cool.
It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, and I will make sure to link all that stuff in the show notes. Hayli, thank you again for being on You Me Empathy.
Thank you for having me. And again, thank you for the community that you've built. I'm just so honored to be a part of it and to be here today.
Oh, very happy to have you. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.